Okay, good evening, everyone. Starting momentarily, just making sure everything is working. Okay, it looks good. This end. Okay, let's start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhasa. Okay, so we're Vetter, the third Thurs are. And as I said at the first of these talks, all three of these first fetters relate to the view because it's one of the defining characteristics of stream entry is a purification of the view. So we've had Sakaya Ditti, Silabeta Paramasa, and today we're going to talk a bit about Wicikitcha. There seems to be two translations that are commonly found: skeptical doubt and uncertainty. I think I prefer to call it uncertainty. Skeptical doubt, I think it in a way is maybe is slightly too strong, and in that sense misleading, because there's a form of doubt that's actually spiritually helpful, positive, and that is open-mindedness, not being fixed, not being narrowly fixed in your view. The the real way to make progress is to have a good questions rather than to have answers. As long as you have this kind of question mark mind, you're open to unfolding and discovering. And I think it's a mistake that is commonly made, uh, particularly by people who have an intellectual kind of a bent, is to think they've got something figured out, and then they never examine that area they can. Whereas if you beginner's mind, as they say in Zen, I don't know the answers, but I'm interested to explore and find out. That's a healthy kind of doubt. Wicikitcha, uncertainty, implies as part of that doubting mind a desire on the part of the person for certainty, that you want an answer, but you haven't found it, and you oscillate between A and B. You can't make up your mind, but you feel that you need to. So it's kind of the opposite of having an open mind. So it can be kind of anxiety causing and distressing. I remember early on, and I listened, and particularly, this is one area where you'll find a great deal of discrepancy from one teacher to the next in terms of defining the jhana factors, defining what constitutes a jhana, uh, talking about what's the best method of practice, and so on and so on. And for a long time, that bothered me. I felt that there had to be one definitive answer. And then I gradually came to the realization, I don't need to decide everything. I can have an open mind and listen to the different teachers and take in their points of view and see things from different angles, and that might help me to broaden my understanding. So that's that's the general of which you can that wants definitive answers but hasn't found them and is not dissatisfied with that condition. There's another aspect to Wicikitcha, which is that particular kind of doubt that is harmful to the practice. This kind of a negative, cynical kind of a doubt that is also an opposite of open-mindedness. There's various definitions about what the person experiencing Wicikitcha, what they are in doubt of, and they're in doubt of the basic tenets like the Four Noble Truth and dependent origination and so on. But I think the critical one is the Third Noble Truth. That if one is in doubt about the unconditioned, about release from suffering, about nibbana, that's the real Wicikitcha. That's the real hindrance to practice. And just as with the other fetters, the other two lower fetters, it's only at stream entry that a person is completely free of Wicikitcha. This is to do with the nature of the goal, the nature of nibbana itself, because it's so transcendent, it's so indefinable, it's ineffable. It cannot be spoken of, it cannot be defined. It can be grasped by the means until one has at least glimpsed it. And this is what happens at stream entry, is at least a glimpse of the unconditioned, so that then that uncertainty is abolished, because now one is experienced for oneself the reality of the Third Noble Truth, and there's no more room for doubt on that score. And a lot of other Dhamma falls into place based on that foundation. Having seen the unconditioned, at least at that very immediate level, then the condition becomes understood more. Once there's been an actual experience of Third Noble Truth, then the other Noble Truths come into focus by comparison. In the understand truth, Third Noble Truth, the path is to the task is to experience it, to enter into it. It's quite a different thing. It cannot be understood, but it can be experienced, and that's what constitutes stream entry. So it's said that one of the definitions of stream entry is opening of the Dhamma eye, and it said that the view is purified, which is a long way to say that the view is purified is a long way from saying that the stream winner has any kind of omniscience. That's not the case at all. But the stream winner can never fall into gross kinds of errors like eternalism or annihilationism, the extreme wrong views. It's just not both. Mind of and take them as he can only imagine them as a kind of a concept. I think I've used this analogy before. It's like an adult human being, an ordinary educated adult, cannot believe that the Easter Bunny is a real thing, a real being. but he can imagine the Easter Bunny. He can even pretend for the sake of the children that there's an Easter Bunny, but he can't. It just slides off his mind. He can't really believe in it. So it is with a stream winner cannot believe in eternalism or annihilationism. It just seems impossible and absurd, because having glimpsed the unconditioned, one sees as a corollary of that, one sees the emptiness of self and actually of all things. It's a penetration into anatta and sunyata, so that one is freed from those delusions. And I just reiterate the point that for these first three fetters, the patujana, the unenlightened being, someone who's not yet reached stream entry, they're never fully free of those fetters. They're still present to some degree in the mind, even if they're very slight. And with good practice and with contemplating the Dhamma and listening to Dhamma, studying Dhamma, one can attenuate those fetters until they're very slender, and that makes stream entry easier. But they're not completely gone until the moment of stream. That they never return. They're completely eradicating consciousness. I'll go to the chat. I always have to expand this here. Okay. Can jhanic states be entered through insight meditation or other methods than tranquility meditation? Thank you. Yes and no. One, if one experiences jhanic states while doing vipassana, it's considered to be a corruption of insight. It's like you've gone off the insight path, and it's not a. It's you're doing means you've. If you become attached to it, you're doing something wrong, and you're not going to progress in your vipassana. Next one. I saw your video on Silabata Paramasa and was amazing. Thank you. How can I better understand? Para means it means reflection or contemplation. How you the sankharas you form around an object, and they can be either yoniso or ayoniso. Yoniso is skillful, and ayoniso is unskillful. Yoniso manasakara is to bring up contemplations related to Dhamma, to see impermanence and suffering or imperfection and emptiness in things. Whereas yoniso manasakara is when you see things with the eye of desire or ill will or anger or fear, and then the sankharas will be based on those defilements. Next one from Dhamma, because I'm having difficulty with an object at the beginning of my meditation. Yeah, you can do samatha meditation with a wide variety of objects. Anapana is what works for most people. That's why we talk about it a lot and emphasize it. But you can experiment with kasina meditation or meditation on sound, or even something like doing a mantra could be considered a samatha meditation. One that goes on to say then switch to anapana after a certain amount of concentration has been achieved. You can practice that way. You might want to just stick with the whatever initial object gives you a good concentration. Just stay with it. One of the traditional ways, switching objects can sometimes be skillful. one of the traditional ways of doing anapanasati, and the one that's talked about in the Visuddhimagga, is to start with anapanasati. So it's kind of different from what you're saying, but same principle. You start with anapanasati until a visual nimitta arises, and you switch to the visual nimitta as your object of concentration. That's a very traditional method. Okay. Which country would you recommend for someone seeking ordination nowadays? For a man, I would suggest Thailand, uh, or perhaps Sri Lanka. That's some degree. That's a matter of taste. I'm biased. I was ordained in Thai tradition, and it worked well for me. Women have a harder time. There's less venues for female ordination, and I wouldn't say, if a woman seriously wanted to pursue a monastic career, I would not suggest Thailand. I would look into either staying in the West and ordaining in one of the Western monasteries, or going to Taiwan. Is said to be a very good place for women, but then you're practicing in Mahayana tradition. If that's okay with you, then that would probably be the ideal place for women. Was the Abhidhamma Pitaka recited at First Council? No, no. The tradition has it that it was not. It was only Sutta and Vinaya. I heard Arahant dreams. I don't know about that. If that's correct, I could see arguments being made both ways. Dreams in general. The Buddha did have a. There's one short sutta in the Anguttara where he talks about the different kinds of dreams. That some dreams are messages from the devas. Some dreams are visions of the past, meaning particularly past lives, and some dreams are visions of the future. And he ends up, some dreams are just wind in the valley. And I think that last one is probably takes in the majority of dreams. They're just, it's just the mind kind of rearranging the furniture and bits and pieces. And I think people time to find the dream. How does monastic life in the West contrast with monastic life in the East? Well, in the East, say in Thailand or Sri Lanka, you're living in a country that is a Buddhist society, and there's it's sort of in the air, and there's a widespread support of monks. It's possible in Thailand for a monk to go out in the morning with his alms bowl and in any town or village or city and fill up his alms bowl with ease and have enough to eat. It's, of course, in the West, we're in a non-Buddhist country, and we don't have that widespread support as we do in the East. So it tends to be a bit more difficult. So what a lot, like here at Arrow River, there's no opportunity to go on alms around. So we, like many of the Western monasteries, we have lay people staying at the monastery who provide the food and take care of things in other ways. And there's actually that's not entirely an innovation. There's actually a discussion of that in the Vinaya text of having a monastic steward, they call it. How do we know that these postures for meditation are ones taught by the Buddha? Well, we do have numerous texts where the Buddha talks about the meditator sitting cross-legged. You just go to a lonely place, an empty hut or a pile of straw or a shade of a tree, and settle your mind and sit cross-legged and then contemplate. And he also talks about walking meditation. And the posture, the lying posture is also, the lion's pose is also described right in the suttas. So those things are traditional. You go right back to the Buddha. How does the skepticism of Nagarjuna differ from that of Western skeptics like David Hume or Immanuel Kant? That's an interesting question. I'd have to think about that. I don't know that much about Western philosophy. I'm just vaguely familiar with the ideas of Hume and Kant. I know that the Nagarjuna, his skepticism is, in the end, it has I think it has a kind of a teaching role. Like it liberates the mind from fixed concepts, so that one can enter into to emptiness. I'm not sure if either Hume or Kant have that sort of end goal in mind. Would you recommend for women to ordain with Ajahn Brahm? Yeah, that is one option for women. That would be something. If you're a woman seeking ordination, that would be one place to check out. Just like I said, staying in the West. If America became a Buddhist country, what would happen? This is the opposite of capitalism and materialism. Well, that wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, I would. I have to say that just when a country is Buddhist, it doesn't mean all the people in that country are good Buddhists. They might even, like Thailand, where 98% of the population would define themselves as Buddhist. There's still plenty of materialism, and there's many vices going on. It's just like in a Christian country, not everybody's a good Christian, even if they call themselves Christian. They don't follow all the teachings of Christianity. The human nature is very fallible. But if we want to speculate, if America became a Buddhist country, I could only think that would improve the moral tone of the place, and maybe they'd be a bit less aggressive in foreign wars and so on. What to do if Pita or Yaka giving sexual vision? Yeah, that can only really happen if you open yourself to that. Evil beings, like demonic beings like Petus or Yakas, can only prey on someone who has made an opening for them with their own defilements. So make an effort to purify the mind, and if it's particularly in the nature of a sexual vision or a fantasy, then contemplation of 32 parts of the body would be a counter to that. Is the higher chitta witnessing all rebirths and the lower chittas experience individual rebirths and believe them to be real and true, and thus a sense of self is developed because of this? That is a way of talking about it or defining it that I have seen. It's not something I would say is that way of thinking is not explicitly found in the Buddhist texts. But I don't really have a problem with it. It does seem to make a certain amount of sense. That when we come into manifestation, that is, when we take on a body, we're reborn, is kind of a limitation. It's like the sunyata, the void, is a full emptiness. Uh, it's a universal potential, because nothing is manifest, everything is possible. But when someone has taken manifestation, then there's a limit now. There's it's now a kind of a fall from the infinite to the finite. What are the best reasons for ordaining? Is it possible to live a monk's life in solitude without ordaining? Yeah, I think the best reason for ordaining is, well, there's more than I can think of several, but one is that you become part of a living tradition, which can be very helpful, inspiring. Why reinvent the wheel, type of thing, and it's a real sense of renunciation. It's the making a break with the world. It's quite real, and really helps with the spiritual practice. Um, it is possible, but I think it's probably more difficult to remain steadfast. It is possible to live like a hermit's life without taking formal ordination. It's not like the ordination process is some kind of magical rite that confers some sort of supernatural change on a person. That would be Silabhata Paramasa to believe that. But it's extremely helpful and useful. Next, is there extremely solitary sangha where one could ordain without having to be around talking to other monks and stuff and doing ceremonies with people coming? Yeah, well, you can find you'll never find I don't think anywhere a monastery where you're completely free of those things, but there's degrees, and if you find some forest monastery, um, you can often find places that have a lot of seclusion, and um, you're not required to interact all day long with people. How well do average Buddhist laity understand nature's suffering compared to Westerners? As an American, I wish I'd heard the Four Noble Truths much earlier. Yeah, I think in people, just the ordinary person in the Buddhist countries, they at least they have a reasonable understanding of the Buddhist teachings, even maybe on a superficial level, and I think that helps with make their life happier. Explain the opening you are referring to in regards to yakas, please. Well, it means if you have dark spaces in your mind, if you have defilement, and you're falling into kind of demonic mind states yourself, then you resonate on that frequency and you attract demonic beings from outside. I was recently introduced to taking precepts with a monk and receiving a Pali name, confirming a commitment to lay life. You speak about this procedure, Bhante. Yes, this is a good thing to do. This is called being in upasaka, a lay follower, a formal lay follower. You take the 5 precepts, and sometimes you can get, if you request it particularly, you can get a Pali name. I've given out a few of those, and it's it's a way of confirming your commitment and giving you something to rely on, to fall back on. These kind of formal ceremonies, it can be very helpful. And again, the same with the monk's ordination. It's not a magic ceremony that's going to change your being just by hocus pocus, but it's a formal commitment, and it helps give you the strength to carry on. It is said that a Sotapanna may experience up to 7 rebirths before attaining to Arhat. Is it possible those rebirths could happen with the same lifetime the Sotapanna was reached, such that the person falls back into illusion and doubt within the same lifetime? No, it doesn't work that way. Once you become a Sotapanna, there's now, let's say, a floor you can't fall below. You can have your highs and lows, but you can never fall back into gross delusion. Um, and it's possible, and the 7 lifetimes is a maximum. And it's possible that someone can become an arahant in one lifetime. But once a person becomes a sotapanna, that's it. There's no going back from that. There's one of the characteristics of a stream winner, besides the 7 lifetimes maximum, is that they'll never be born into lower births. And they're either human or dewa only. So what that would mean in terms of a single lifetime is that the sotapanna can never have really bad mind states. I don't think a sotapanna could fall into like a heavy depression, for example. It might fall into being sad, but not falling all the way down into depression. I was taking classes at a local monastery, and after a while, a monk gave me a Buddhist name. What does that mean? Um, well, it means he's accepted that you have reached a certain stage in your studies that he feels you're worthy of having a name. It's a kind of an informal thing. There's no like fixed rule for it. I think morality is rapidly deteriorating in modern society, and it's making the life of newer generations harder and harder. It reminds me of where the Buddha talked about shorter lifespans. Yes, yeah, I mean we can see it in real time. Yeah, I agree. I've read a bit of there's a lady. It's partly it's a natural deterioration, but it's also I think it's cycles of history that are our civilization has passed its peak. It's past its best before date. Okay. Over the past few weeks, we have reached an ideological agreement the universe is probably infinite, and true infinity means perfection, not lacking a single thing, truly complete. Has the world already come to an end and we don't know it yet? Ah, why? The world's always coming to an end. And it's always being born again. Can you provide examples of solitude monasteries, please? Well, I'm kind of living in one at Arrow River in Canada. We kind of work on that model. In in Thailand, there I stayed, and both of those were really beautiful natural environments and quite a lot of solitude. They were retreat monasteries affiliated with Wat Pah Nanachat. And you'll see this model in Asia sometimes. There'll be like a main monastery that will be more busy and maybe closer to the population centers. And they will have branches that are retreat monasteries that the monks can take turns going off and staying in more intense meditation in the forest. Do you mean like Satanism? Can you provide examples? Well, there is mention in the Jataka stories about the yakas possessing people, and and causing them to do foolish or dangerous things. Um, it's like they enter into the person's mind and create the impulses and delusions in their mind. I think uh, we'll we'll leave it there. Next week we'll start on the so video is glitchy as usual. It keeps freezing and starting again, but I hope the sound got through all right. Okay.